recording because I'm going to blow my fuse if it is not. Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Monica and today I am going to talk about my journey through depression. For the past few weeks, we have been talking to a couple of my friends about happiness, about wellness, about spirituality and overall empowerment. And I thought that it was high time that I spoke about what I went through when I was in depression and how I got out of it, because it's time. I think it is time. So I decided to go completely off script for this episode, and I did not want to have to do a lot of editing and polishing and all that makeup sort of a thing of the video, because I didn't want to make it too nice, because depression isn't nice, right? This is the second time I am recording this video. As you all know, the previous recording yesterday that I did is taken over by the static monster, and I have to record it today again. And I hope that I'm able to cover everything that I said yesterday, because it was totally off script. I don't really know what I said yesterday, so yeah, I'm going to try to catch up. Before we begin, I just want to give a trigger warning to everybody who will be watching this video. There is going to be talk of depression, there is going to be talk of self-harm, and all of the dark and depressive things that are associated with depression, and you've been warned. Another thing, I want to make it extremely clear that I have never been diagnosed medically with depression. I am self-diagnosed. The most important reason behind this is that when I was depressed a long time ago, I did not have the resources or the liberty to seek professional help. So yes, I am self-diagnosed, and the intention of this video is not to spread any kind of misinformation or to mislead anyone in any way that this is what clinical depression looks like and this is how you can recover from it. No, my whole purpose of sharing this video is to share my experience of it and what I went through and how I recovered without professional help and how hard it was for me. I am a total believer of psychotherapy and psychiatry, and if you are somebody who is suffering from depression and other mental health issues, I strongly recommend seeking professional help if you are able, if you can afford it. Try and save a little bit money on the side and just go and seek professional therapy. It really helps. Alright, so with all of that out of the way, let's get started. So my trigger was heartbreak, as is very clear from the thumbnail of this video, and I can hear all your cynicism out there. I can hear it because as I stepped into adulthood and as I left my teenage years behind me, my tweens behind me, I kind of had the same kind of cynicism for myself and all of the different things that I went through. And this is also another reason why I wanted to share my journey through depression, because with the added knowledge of our experiences and the kind of perspective that comes from growing up into adulthood, we tend to scoff at heartbreak, especially when a teenager comes up to you or you get to know of a teenager who just says that they kind of broke up and they are going through a very difficult time. So all of us adults kind of look at them a certain way, because I have done that, I have done that to myself, to other people. So this is one reason I wanted to share this. As we grow, we kind of forget what it was like to be a kid, be a teenager with all of those hormones that are raging inside us, and all the mess that comes with being a teenager. We kind of forget that, and and we tend to take things lightly for other people who are going through the same experiences that we have gone through when we were teenagers. But this is something that we should not be doing. I just want all of you to just kind of close your eyes and think back to that very first crush that you had, or the very first puppy love that you had, the first relationship that you had, and just kind of allow yourself to feel all of those feelings and come to a point where that relationship kind of broke up. It did not work out between you guys, and just think about all of those feelings that you went through and try to understand how difficult it was for you when you were a teenager, and just try and empathize with the people who are going through it. So it is the first overtly emotional experience that we go through, our first love or our first relationship. It is the first time in our lives that we have opened up to a stranger and allowed them inside our lives, inside our hearts. And when that relationship breaks up, it's like losing somebody, right? It's a kind of grieving that you have to do to let that person go and move on with your life. It is a loss, and you are probably one of those people who are experiencing this kind of loss for the very first time in your life. Imagine how hard it must be to just go through all of that alone, because you are not really sure of what you're feeling. You are not really sure of everything that is going on inside you, outside you. You don't know who to trust about your feelings. You just don't know anything. You don't have a handle of things. You're clueless, you're tetherless. It's a very, very difficult phase in our lives. And of course, when we grow up, we do get a sort of perspective on our teenage years, and we kind of look back and laugh at things. But that comes only with age, right? It doesn't mean that everything that the teenagers are going through is nothing, because it is something. It is their reality. It was our reality when we were teenagers, right? So yes, my trigger for my depression was heartbreak, and it was it was not a very long-term relationship, but it was the very first time that I had opened up to somebody and allowed them inside my mind and inside my heart, and it was very difficult. I remember, when it ended, I was just out of college. My graduation was done and just out of college, and I kept thinking to myself that if we are meant to be, somehow or the other we would stay in the same college for our post-graduation. We were in the process of getting admitted to different colleges, and I had this childish belief that if we are meant to be, it would be a sign that we are in the same college and we are supposed to take it forward. But as it happened, we did not stay in the same college. I got a different one, and they got a different one, and I took it as a sign that no, we are not supposed to be together, and this is it, and it is time to move on. But it's not as easy as it sounds, right? You know what you're supposed to be doing, but your heart doesn't really allow you to do all of those things. It doesn't allow you to let go of all of the feelings that you felt like just yesterday, right? Like it was just yesterday that you were deeply in love and you had your whole future planned, naive as that sounds. But yeah, you just yesterday it was, it was like a dream, and today it's not there anymore. So yeah, it was difficult, and so I was like, okay, apparently we are supposed to move on, and it was a mutual thing, and it was doubly hard because of that, because when it is mutual, that you kind of have those feelings for each other, but due to n number of reasons, that there is no future to this relationship, and you're like, okay, let's go our separate ways. But like I said, it's very, very, very hard. So I moved on to a separate college, and I started my post-graduation, and I think it was back then I was like 21, 22, and wow. I don't really remember much of it. Like honestly speaking, it's like all a blur. And I remember reading this, in a lot of places, that depression is kind of like, you're going through life, but you are already dead inside. And that was what it was like, because I have mostly blanked out all of my emotions and all of the things that I was going through at that point of time. But I do remember, kind of withdrawing into myself and isolating myself from everybody else, and not talking to my friends, not talking to my family, throwing tantrums, not doing so well in my academics, which I probably was doing earlier, and not even going through, all my classwork and coursework and everything. Just going through life as if you're already dead, like it doesn't matter anymore. And I think that is one of the things that just constantly kept repeating in my head, like what is the point, what would be different? Nothing is going to be different if I, let's say, if I do my practicals, or if I ace my exams. There is nothing inside me that is going to be different if I do all of those things, so why bother? It was like that. Now that I'm talking about it after so many years, and after so much of perspective and distance from that situation, you can probably see that I'm not as invested in those emotions as I was at that point of time. But back then it was very, very hard to go through life. It was excruciating, and it was like you separate yourself from your friends, you don't talk to them, and when they come to you asking like what is wrong, why are you behaving like this, you shun them away, like you are not going to understand my problems, like you are not going to understand. So there is this sort of rage that you have against everybody out there, that somehow they are responsible for your plight, and somehow they are responsible for not understanding what you are going through, and helping you go through this, despite knowing that you are not talking about it, you are not telling anybody what you are going through. So predictably, I made a lot of bad choices. Okay, so this is something that I read like almost like years later. I came across this piece of writing by David Foster Wallace, and he compares being depressed, the mind of a depressed person, to a burning building, and the depressed person is kind of trapped inside that burning building. And he says that the person standing outside that burning building has no idea what is going on inside the head of the person who is trapped inside. They can see that that person is trapped, they can see that the person is trying to escape, but they cannot ever truly understand what is going on inside the head of that person inside. And he also said that the urge to escape that void that is all around that person, the one who is depressed, the urge to escape from that void is so strong that it doesn't matter that the only escape out is through the window. It doesn't matter. That's how isolating and insanely painful the whole experience is, that it doesn't matter that you are going to have to jump out the window to escape that pain, because the only thing that matters is escaping. And I guess this is something that many people that I have spoken to, even back then when I was making a lot of bad choices and I was doing a lot of things that I would not normally do, there were a lot of people who would just come up to me and say, snap out of it, like what is wrong with you, why are you behaving this way, why are you so whiny all the time, and you are not responding to my text, which is all justified, right? It is all justified. I'm not saying that it is not justified, but that hurts. It really hurts, because I didn't know how to explain what I was going through. I didn't know how to give words. I didn't have words to tell my friends what I was going through. How could I explain it to them? And it's not as easy as, like snapping out of it. It is not easy. It hurts to be that sort of a person, like it hurts to be that sort of a person who is, creating all of these dynamics within friendships and other relationships. But I didn't know what to do. The only way I thought that I could, even have like a slight chance of surviving at that point was to be into myself and just kind of be this ball of pain and anguish and anger. And when somebody comes up to you and they say that, just snap out of it, what are you doing, why are you behaving like this, and why are you so whiny all the time? Like, I didn't have the answers. I still don't have the answers. Like I said, I made a lot of bad choices. I started drinking. I think it was that time in my life that I actually started like drinking a lot. And because, escape, again, you are looking at any sort of escape that can come to you, it's welcome. So I started drinking at that point of time, and it just went way beyond what I could control, because it was an easy way out. And I remember, so I cannot really go into the specifics of the kind of things that I did, or self-harm, like I was saying, because then YouTube is going to strike this video off, and we don't want that. So I'll just give an example of how removed or detached I was from reality. I remember I was coming back from college one day, and I used to travel a lot by bus. So my bus dropped me like 2 streets over from my house, and I got down and I started crossing the road, and I was so out of it. I was so unaware of anything outside of me that I did not realize that the bus had, the driver had started the bus and it was coming my way. And I remember that the bus just kind of crashed against my shoulder. There was a loud thud against my shoulder, and the driver stopped the bus, and a lot of people came out of the bus, and some of them were shouting, some of them were asking after me, like, are you hurt, does it hurt, are you okay? And all I remember thinking was, why did it not hit me harder? I remember thinking that I wish I was like right in front of it and not to the side. I remember thinking that it doesn't hurt. Shouldn't it hurt? And I remember being so disappointed that I couldn't even do that right, even though it was something that I did not even know that I was doing. I was so disappointed in myself for not getting struck down. incident that comes to mind is I forgot what I was saying. Why so much of all of this? I think it was mostly because that was the first time that I felt like somebody. There were a lot of things going wrong in my family, in other aspects of my life, and I guess that was the first time in a very long time that I felt like I was being seen, and it felt good, and to have that snatched away from you was very, very painful. All my years before that relationship, I think I suffered from this constant niggling doubt that I was not enough, I was not smart enough, I was not confident enough, I was not good looking enough, and I was just not enough for so many people in so many aspects of my life, that having that in a relationship was kind of good for me, or at least I thought that at that point of time. And then it was gone, and then I was again in that same rut of not being seen by other people. For most of my life I have this need to seek external validation, because I never knew myself. I don't think I ever spent even a little bit of time or effort in trying to understand who I was, and I have always seen myself through other people's eyes and through other people's expectations of myself. And when that was gone, I felt like I was nothing. It was also very dissociating for myself, because prior to that happening to me, I was not the kind of person who looked lightly at self-harm, and to have become the person who was doing self-harm was like another level of another rock bottom that I had hit. And I just couldn't recognize myself when I used to look in the mirror, and I just couldn't see myself over there, because after having given so much of yourself to something and not having it reciprocated, or not having it come to a satisfying end, it breaks you. It did break me, and I don't know how I survived. I'm going to now speak about this one incident where I felt like I had reached the lowest point in my life, and again, trigger warning for this. I remember sitting in the bathroom of my house, because there was nowhere else in the house that I could actually cry, because then other people will start asking questions, ki why are you crying, kya ho gaya, and everything, and I did not want to have to feel all those questions. So my bathroom was my solace. So I was in the bathroom, I was crying, and I remember I saw and while crying, I saw my father's razor over there. It was an old kind of, you could remove the blade from that razor. It was not a safety razor. And yeah, I was sitting inside the bathroom for a very long time, and I had the blade in my hand, and I was there for I don't know hours. I was there, but I couldn't do it. And rather than being relieved at the knowledge that I wanted to live and I wanted to be a different person, rather than being relieved again, I was so disappointed. I felt like such a failure for not even having the courage to do that. So this is something that people often, I have seen people talk about a lot, that people who commit suicide, what are they thinking? Why did they not think of their parents? Why did they not think of their siblings or their friends? That was very selfish of them to just take this decision and leave everybody behind. And this is something that irritates me to no end. A person who is thinking of committing suicide is not thinking of anybody else. They are not thinking of their parents. They don't have the capacity to think of anyone other than their pain. Like in the example of the burning building, for that person who is contemplating suicide, the only thing that matters is escape. And it doesn't matter that escape is going to be through death. It doesn't matter. And they do not have the capacity to think about anybody else other than their own pain. And if you want to call it selfish, fine, it is selfish. But for once, try to put yourself inside that burning building. Try to think about what could be going on inside that person's head, that anything is better than burning in that fire. Anything. There was so much shame and guilt and regret and so much anger that I had inside me for myself that it didn't really register what others were saying about me. It did not. It didn't matter to me because I was blaming myself enough for everything that I was doing, and it did not matter what anybody else was saying. It did not matter if they thought that I was being selfish. It did not matter if they thought that I was ruining friendships. Today, after so many years of that point in my life, I know I was wrong. I know that I should not have spurned my relationships with my friends. And I'm not making any kind of an excuse over here for the way I behaved with other people. The only thing that I know for certain is that I didn't know how to behave better. I didn't know how to be. And if that sounds like an excuse, then fine. It's fine. I'm okay with it. So how did I come out of that cycle? As I said, I could not reach out to professional help. I could not get medically diagnosed at that point of time. So how did it happen for me? It's a very weird thing. I don't know whether anybody can relate to it, but I remember sitting in my college canteen and talking to this friend of mine. He was my batchmate, and we were in the same department, and we were just having our evening tea, and we started talking about our families. I remember he told me how he had lost his sister the previous year, and he had been in Mumbai at that point of time, and he could not make it back in time to say goodbye. His family carried out the rituals without him, and I remember thinking, sitting there and looking at him and thinking that, you know, this person has suffered such a great loss, and he can never have closure. He can never get to see his sister again, or talk to her again, or to say goodbye at least. He can never have that closure, and he is still here. He is still trying to do the best that he can. He is still trying to live up to his sisters and his family's expectations. And look at me, what am I doing with my life? I cried so hard after that. I remember I was crying for 3 whole days, in the bathrooms, at my home, outside. I could not bear the thought of bearing so much of grief, of bearing witness to the fact that, you know, this person that you loved, you are not going to see them ever again. And I realized that, you know, no matter the situation that I was in, at least I had closure. At least I had said my goodbyes, and at least I had, you know, the possibility of knowing that this other person is going to probably lead a happy life later on. That was what just brought me out of my shell. And I thought to myself that, you know, if, having realized all of this, if I did not take charge of my life, then there is no bigger fool than me. I had closure, and that's so much more than I had closure, and that is so much more than most people get. And that was when I went back to my friends, the same friends who had been with me, who had you know, been at the receiving end of all my anger and all my cynicism. I went back to those friends, and they were there for me throughout the 6 years of my depression and then recovery. These were the set of people who used to tell me again and again that, Monica, this is not you. You need to get out of it. You need to talk to people, and if you ever want to talk about it, we are here. So I went back to them and I talked to them, and I let out everything that was festering inside me, and they were there for me. And I guess if it hadn't been for them, I don't think that I would have made it out. I don't think I would have ever been able to let go of that pain. I wouldn't have been. So it was not easy. It was very, very hard. One of the first things that they do in therapy, which I went through just at the beginning of this year, and I have been very vocal about it, but that was not for this. That was for something else that was bothering me, and it was inhibiting. I will talk about it probably in some other video. So yeah, the first thing that they do in therapy is try to understand, you know, your problems and what you went through, and they encourage you to confront your fears. They encourage you to confront everything that has happened to you, everything that you have done, and embrace it as a fact. And I think that is what I did when I spoke to my friends about it, and they heard me out. over time, by talking about it and by just kind of reintegrating into my life, the one that I had left behind, reintegrating into my life, I kind of pulled myself through that ocean of darkness, and it was very tough. It was very tough because you now have to accept that you have done all of this. You have to accept that you were in so much pain, and you have to accept that you are trying to rebuild your life. And it is a very, very, very tough thing to do. It is a very tough realization to come to terms with, that you had lost yourself to such an extent that you became a person that you hated. You became a person that had no purpose in life, that you became nothing at all. One of the very first things to go in my life when my depression began in the initial years was my interest in doing everything that I had previously been very, very passionate about. For example, I lost my passion for reading, and books were very special to me because even when I was 9, I was 10, books had come to me like a godsend, and reading was something that I passionately did. But when I was in depression, I couldn't even bring myself to have that kind of energy, that kind of patience, and that kind of passion for reading. And I remember throughout those 6 years of initial depression, and then festering in that kind of a darkness, and then my recovery, I remember I could not write at all, and it was the only way. When I was a kid, writing was the only thing that helped me express everything that I was feeling inside. And during those 6 years, I did not write a single word, because I don't know why this is. I still haven't understood it. You don't want that void to come out of it, because you don't know what you're going to be when it is out. During that phase, when you're depressed and when you're dealing with all of these different kind of negative thoughts, you don't, or you can't express yourself and let everything that is festering inside you out, because you don't know what is going to be left behind, and you are so scared of that husk of a person that you hold on to this void, because this void is what gives you meaning. This void is what gives your life some purpose, that you are alive because you have to nurture this void. Otherwise you will vanish. You are nothing. So I did not write anything during those 6 years, and I remember the first time I wrote after those 6 years, after I had started reading, after I had become a part of a lot of reading communities and writing communities. At that point, I think it was 2017, and I remember the first time I wrote, it was a poem, I think. I remember I felt like like a dam had burst open, and now it could not be stopped. And I wrote and I wrote and I wrote, and I tried to come to terms with everything that I was feeling. So writing and reading is what kind of brought me back to life, and this community that I was a part of, the Broke Bibliophiles, I remember just buying a lot of books, the books that I had loved as a child before everything that had happened. I bought a lot of books. I bought a lot of Harry Potter or Percy Jackson, Lord of the Rings, Secret 7. I read them again, and I hoarded books. I don't know how much money I spent on books 2017, 2018, but yeah, my mom was pretty angry. So I found a lot of like-minded people on that community, and it was fun talking about books, talking about stories, and I found a lot of friends in that community. 95% of those people I have never met. I have only interacted with them online, and we were again part of different reading communities, and we interacted a lot on books, on fantasy, on Brandon Sanderson. So that was what kind of just brought me to a place where I was happy interacting with people, and I was happy with myself. I don't think, I'm sure that none of those people that I spoke to during those years, none of them really know how big a part they have played in my recovery. And I'm so grateful for that community and for all the people that I talked to in that community for bringing me a new kind of love. I am so grateful. So after all of these years, I think the question automatically arises, am I healed? And is my depression over? How do I feel about myself? I would say that yes, my depression, the thing that was bothering me, the thing that was causing all of those emotions and all of those tendencies, that thing is resolved inside me, and I have come to terms with that part of my life, and even come to kind of respect that part of my life, because one of the most important things that my depression taught me is how to love myself, and that has been a great part of my recovery, because prior to that I had never loved myself. I had never even considered myself as a being worthy of love. And when I was in my recovery period, I remember every day waking up and deciding that yes, I am worthy of love, and I am going to love myself the way I had always expected other people to love me. I think that is one of the most important things that I have learned from my depression and my recovery, is how to love myself and how to be with myself and not feel alone or lonely. And it is something that we don't do often enough. I was speaking to Kajal that day in our episode of Understanding Happiness, and we talked about her podcast Mind Switch, where in one of those episodes she had asked, do you love yourself? And I am so happy to know that every time that question comes around, I know the answer. After all of those years, I finally know the answer, and yes, I do love myself. वो जब भी मिट में वो गीत बोलती है ना कि मैं अपनी फेवरेट हूँ, and I think that is how I started feeling as I was going through my recovery period, and I have not looked back. So am I healed? Am I happy? I don't think that anyone is happy all the time, because life is not like that. You have bad phases, then you have good phases, then you have bad phases again, and things happen. this thing that one of my favorite novels says, that the wheel of time keeps turning and turning. So that happens in life. And after my depression, after I was recovering, there were a lot of things that happened in my life that caused me great pain. And I lost one of my friends. I have spoken about him earlier as well. So I experienced the loss of a friend. I experienced a lot of other trauma, and there were a lot of struggles in my life after that as well. And it's impossible to be 100% happy and 100% cheerful all the time. But one of the things that my depression taught me is I can survive it. Whatever it is, I can survive it. Every time something happens and I hit rock bottom again, I feel like this time I'm not going to make it, and this is what is going to eat me away, and I'm not going to make it. I kind of pause and I tell myself that you have been through hell. You have been through the lowest of the lows, where you were willing to give up your life to escape from the pain, and you survived, and you are here today. After all of that, you are here today, and you have what it takes to go through this too. And it's not going to eat me. I can make it. And I think that is another very, very important lesson that I have learned from my depression and from my recovery. This is not to justify anything, okay? I'm not saying that the things that I did or the things that happened were right in any case. They were not right. They were very, very wrong. But you come to a point in your life where you have to embrace all of the different parts of yourself. Otherwise, you are never going to be whole again. And I think that is what I do every single day. I get up and I embrace who I was yesterday, and I move on from there, and I can do it. So after having spoken so much about what happened and how I suffered and how I recovered, the thing that I want you guys, whoever is watching this, the thing that I want you guys to take away from this is that you are not alone in your suffering. Never believe that that this pain or this tragedy is going to do you in, because it is not. Our resilience and our will to live and to survive is so strong that despite our best efforts, life wins. And I just want you to understand that you are not alone. I understand that when we experience a loss of that magnitude, and when we grieve for people we have lost to death or otherwise, it seems impossible that the world can go on, and it seems impossible that anybody else out there in the world knows what you are going through, the pain that you are going through. I know it seems impossible, but it is not. There are millions of other people who are going through the same things that you are going through. They are suffering the same kind of loss, the same kind of pain that you are suffering. The only thing that you need to bring yourself out of it is to talk. And that is where professional therapists come into play. If you can afford one, if you have the liberty to seek out professional help, please do. Please do, it will help. And if you are somebody like me, you don't have resources to seek out professional help, or you don't have the liberty or the kind of freedom to seek out professional help, please talk to your friends. I know it becomes a little tricky talking to your family, and I am not advocating hiding anything from your family, because they are there for you. No matter what, your family is there for you. But if you feel like you cannot speak to your family for one or the other reason, talk to your friends. They are definitely going to be on your side, even though it feels like they are not. I know, I have been there. It feels like, everybody is against you and everybody is out to get you, and nobody can understand the pain that you are going through. It feels like that, but it is not true. Talk to your friends, talk to people, even if it is a stranger online. I cannot tell you how much it has helped me talking to strangers online. Like I was saying about that community, I spoke to so many people about so many different things. Maybe the media that we chose was books, but the stories were very real. The feelings were very real. And it helps, it truly helps. So if you are suffering through something, I hope that my experience has allowed you to kind of connect with the kind of suffering that comes with depression. And I just hope that if you are feeling alone in your pain, I just hope that this video reaches you and it helps you in any sort of a way. If you would like to talk to me, as a stranger, you can reach out to me on the links that I will leave in the description section of this video. Talk to people. It really helps. It really helps. Last but not the least, I want to request adults who are taking care of teenagers, adults who are around teenagers, please don't brush away their feelings under the carpet. Please don't do that. Try to imagine yourself in their place. Try to think back to the time when you used to be teenagers and how you wished your parents would understand you and your feelings. Try to put yourself in their shoes and don't just brush their feelings away as if it is nothing, because it's not nothing. The very least, I know that it can be difficult to talk about all of these things, about about relationships and about the things that come along with relationships with your kids, and you want to give them this encouragement that all is not lost. I get that, but even if you are not able to convey that, I think the best thing is to empathize. That goes a long way. It does. So yes, that's it for today's video. I hope the mic has caught everything I have said. I don't know if I have the courage to do it all over again. I probably would end up doing it again, but let's hope to God that no, I don't have to do it again. That's it for today's video, guys. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you so much for listening to me speak about this. It is very important that we keep talking about this topic, because not only in the mental health awareness month, but throughout the year, every single day, because mental health is as important as physical health, and they are so interlinked that one cannot survive without the other. So please keep talking about it. There is nothing taboo about mental health, about depression. Let no one tell you that this is something that you cannot discuss in the open or you cannot talk about, because I have never met anybody in my entire life of 33 years who has been happy 100% of the time. All of us go through it. All of us mostly go through it alone, and if we have a chance to support each other through this, I think there's nothing better than that. I'll see you next week.